All right. Hey, guys. So welcome to your Wednesday homework. I do want to warn you right now that my dogs are freaking out a little bit. So it is possible that you're going to hear some dog noise in the background. Just try and ignore it. So today in class, we started the idea of similar figures. And you guys did some activities with triangles. So by the end of the video today, my goal is that you guys can explain the characteristics that make figures similar. So there's two things we're going to be looking at. The first one has to do with angles. I'm going to put the angle sign here. And the second one has to do with the sides of a figure. So please make sure that you guys are filling out your notes as you go along. All right. So first things first, similar means same angles. Now we can use a math term here. If you guys remember, we've talked a lot about the word congruent. So instead of same, you could write congruent and be even more mathematically savvy. All right. But in addition to having congruent sides, our angles, the sides must be proportional. So it has to have proportional sides. So it might make sense why you guys were doing proportions in your today's target today. So this takes me a while because I'm using my mouse. Oh, this is painfully slow. You guys are probably just sitting there waiting on me. Okay, so we're going to do some examples of how you guys can tell if two figures are similar. Let's first of all just double check and make sure we look at all of these, that we can tell none of these are congruent, even though they show that they have similar angles, which we can tell by these arcs here. They are not the same size. So we know for sure, even though they have the same shape because they have the same angles, their size is different, so they cannot be congruent. So we have two things that we need to check off on every question, which I showed you on the last page. We have to make sure our angles are congruent and that the sides are proportional. So I'm going to give myself one check mark here because I can tell that my angles are congruent. So we're one step toward being able to tell if these are similar. Now, as you guys did in your activity today, one way to tell if the figures are proportional is to see if they have a scale factor. So here I can see that if I do 3 times 4, I get 12. And that works for every side of my figure. Oops, gotta make sure I'm going to corresponding sides. So my left side's going to my left side, my right side's going to my right side, and my bottom side is going to the bottom. So because these all have a scale factor of 3, that means it is proportional, and I can put my second check mark. So that means that this one is similar. So I'm just going to put a big S. Why don't you guys go ahead and write out similar, because it'll probably take you the same amount of time as it takes me to put an S. All right, let's come over here to number 2. So number 2, again, the first thing I want to check out are my angles. So I can see that all of the angles here are right angles. So that means the angles are congruent. So I'm going to give myself one check mark. However, I need to double check my sides. Now this one's a little bit more difficult. It's hard for me to tell if there's a scale factor because I don't know what you can multiply 5 by to get 7, and I don't know what you can multiply 12 by to get 15. But if you guys remember from your today's target and last year, there's another way to determine proportional sides. But I'm going to give you guys a tip here that's going to help you in the long run. Let's go ahead and label these as the short side, long side, long side. If you remember with proportions, it's very, very important that we get our units lined up. I'm also going to number this triangle number 1 and triangle number 2. So I'm going to put all of my shorts on top, all of my longs on the bottom of my proportion. I'm going to put all of my triangle 1 information here and all of my triangle 2, I'm saying triangles, I mean rectangle information here. So my short side on triangle 1 was 5. And my long side was 12. Okay, my short side on triangle 2 was 7, and my long side was 15. So because I can't tell what my scale factor is, I don't know what to multiply by, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply. Alrighty, so 5 times 15 is 75. But 7 times 12 is 84. So because these do not equal each other, I put a line through here to say they do not equal each other, that means there's no scale factor that'll get us from short side to short side and long side to long side. So I cannot put a check mark. I'm going to put a minus, and I'm going to go ahead and put NS Why don't you guys go ahead and write out not similar? Okay, coming down here to number 3. Again, I see that I've got right angles. These aren't identified with arcs, but I can tell that this angle and this angle are congruent just by looking at it, and that this angle and this angle are congruent. So I can give myself 1 check mark. Again, it's hard for me to tell what my scale factor is to go from short side to short side and medium side to medium side. The reason I didn't label these longs is technically this is the longer side. If you labeled them longs, that's okay. So I can't tell what the scale factor is, so I have to set up a proportion. So I'm going to do short over medium, and I'm going to do triangle 1 and then triangle 2. So I've got 5 over 10. I'm sorry, 8 over 10. So I've got 8 over 10 equals 12 over 15. And again, I made sure that my shorts all went on top and my mediums all went on the bottom. And this was all about triangle 1, and this is all about triangle 2. So again, I can't tell what my scale factor is, but another way to tell if they're proportional is to cross multiply. Okay, so 10 times 12 is 120. And let me plug this into my calculator here. 8 times 15 is 120. So these are equal to each other, which means this proportion worked, which means my sides are proportional, which means there is a scale factor. So go ahead and write that this one is similar. Okay, I want you guys to pause and try number 4 on your own, please. Okay, great. So hopefully you noticed that our angles are congruent. So we gave ourselves 1 check mark. And now we're going to go through and we're going to look at our scale factor. So this is one where I do have an easily defined scale factor, so I don't have to set up a proportion. I know that 6 times 3 equals 18. And again, I'm going from, in this situation, the long side to the long side. And then from my short side to my short side is again times 3. So because they have the same scale factor, that means they are proportional. So I can go ahead and give myself a check mark. Angles are congruent, sides are proportional, so that means these are similar figures. Okay, we're going to go ahead and look at one example that's a little weird. This is the same type of problem. I have 2 triangles, but we have to determine if they are similar. So when I'm looking at my angles, they definitely look congruent, which is good. Actually, I think these might be equilateral triangles. No, maybe isosceles. So I can check that off my box. So the angles look congruent, but now I have to determine if my sides are proportional. This is when it's really, really important that we start labeling our sides when they start switching the shapes on us. So they're not facing the same direction anymore. So this is my short, long, long, short, long, long. So I know there's 3 sides here, but in a proportion, I only need 2. So I'm again going to do my short over my long, and I'm going to do this one all about triangle 1 and this one all about triangle 2. So let's call this one triangle 1 and this one triangle 2. So my short is 5, my long is 7, that's about triangle 1. Okay, my short on my second triangle is 27.5, and my long is 38.5. Now again, if these were easy to tell the scale factor, I wouldn't have to set up a proportion, but this one's not super easy. So I don't know what my scale factor is, so I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. And I don't know these multiplication facts off the top of my head, so I'm going to go ahead and do 5 times 38.5, and I get 192.5. And hopefully this other side of 27.5 times 7 also equals 192.5, which it does. So that means my sides are proportional, which means there is a scale factor. So I can put my second check mark and say that these are similar. Okay, that's all we have time for today. We will do more practice in class tomorrow. I know this video was a little long, but I do appreciate you guys sticking with it. Thank you. Have a good night.